Hello. Sorry for the sound quality here. My speakers are actually back behind the microphone, so it may not be the best sound quality. This is the Yamaha DX, or Yamaha Reface DX. It's a new kind of portable option for people who want something like the old DX synthesizers, and they are FM synthesizers, which is a new territory for me. I haven't done it before, but I'm trying to get the hang of it, and you probably hear my dog and my cat and stuff. That's what the licking is. That's not me smacking around. That's my dog. Anyway, so I haven't done FM synthesis before. I got this thing because I was interested in it, and it's a great learning tool, and it's pretty versatile. You can take it anywhere. It's portable. It's just really convenient, and I found a good bargain on it, so I thought I had to go ahead and snatch it up. But I'm glad I did, because this thing is freaking great. I am so excited using this. Every time I use it, it's just so inspiring, and FM synthesis in general has been super inspiring and opened up so many more creative options for me. But for those of you who don't know, I want to talk a little bit about FM synthesis. So what it is you have these things called operators. So there's carriers and there are modulators. The carriers, each of the operators is basically a wave of sound, like a sine wave. In fact, if let me just pick one random here. This doesn't matter, but I'm going to go here, and then I will initialize this voice, which basically clears it and starts it from scratch. So if we look here, we see only one of my operators is active, so you're only going to hear one sound wave. It's a sine wave, which is the purest of the sound waves because it doesn't have any extra frequencies involved in it. It is a pure tone. No overtones or anything like that. So it sounds like this. And so if you listen to just a sine wave for a few seconds, it starts to get kind of disorienting because it's so stable. And 90% of sounds, or almost 100% of the sounds that we hear, are unstable. So it's really weird feeling to just have it go like that. It's kind of like when you get that ringing in your ears. It's that kind of unsteady feeling. But anyways, so you have your operators here, the carrier, and a carrier is the wave that you hear. It's the audible wave. The modulators are extra sine waves, and as of right now, that will manipulate the way the carrier sounds. So if I go to my levels here and I start turning up operator 2, it's going to start feeding into the waveform of operator 1, and it's going to change the shape of that wave to create a different sound. So if I turn it up a little bit, this is hard to do with one hand. I'm holding my camera. Not the most ideal setup, but turn up a little more. And if I turn it way up, you get down into lower frequencies, it gets even better. And of course, this one is just going to raise and lower my volume because that's the audible wave. So that's pretty cool. Then you can change the frequency of the individual waves, which means, like, if I make a wave a lower frequency, it's going to be a longer, wider wave between the peaks. So you can do it in a couple of ways with this machine. You can do it as a ratio, which is what this one is. So if this wave is moving at a certain speed, if I change this one to 2, now I have a 1:2 ratio, which means this wave's going twice as fast. I can also lower it down so it's half as fast. Okay, so you can see it makes the sound kind of louder or softer depending on which way you move it around. Or higher or lower, I mean. So now I can take the second wave here, let's drop it down, and then my third wave, I can do a higher ratio, and now that's going to manipulate the second wave. So this one's going twice, 3 times. I'm not going to do the math right now. This one's going faster than wave 2, so it's changing that shape in that way. And then wave 2 is half the speed of wave 1, so it's affecting it in that way. So you get something like this. Oh, I got to turn up operator 3, or I won't hear anything. And this might be jarring for a sec. So you can already start to see the level of control you have over the sound that you're making. This is kind of like a clavinova. It's just got a long sustain instead of an attack. Which brings me to the next part. So if I want to adjust something like that, I can come over here to my envelope, and I can adjust the attack, the decay, the sustain, and the release. So attack is how long it takes for the sound to fade in. So we only have one waveform that we're hearing, so I'll manipulate wave number 1 so that we can tell the difference the most. I could manipulate the others, but it wouldn't change our volume of the waveform. It would change the tonal qualities of it, the timbre of it, so, or timbre, however you say that. But just so you can see kind of what the attack, decay, sustain, release is, that's ADSR. I can do this. So now it's got a longer attack on it. This is a fairly long attack, so it's going to kind of fade in. Actually, that's not that long. Let's go here. So that's 64. That's about halfway because it uses 127 is the highest. So there's that. If I wanted to go for something like a clavinova, then I would, or clav, want just a very light, so it's not a jarring hit when we start it. And then I would probably want to lengthen my decay here just a little bit, and then I want to take my sustain. I probably want to go all the way down with it, because we don't. If you hit a piano and you hold the key down, that the string inside the piano is going to vibrate until it just stops vibrating on its own. It's going to take a long time, but it's not going to continue to vibrate. And if you let go of the key, then the hammer stops the string. So we want to emulate that. So we're going to give it a little bit longer decay. I don't think halfway. Let's go a little farther. That's probably closer to a piano, but this sound is really harsh, so that's a little better. So you get the idea. This is how you start to shape your sounds and things like that. Now, like I said, if we change one of the modulators, then we start to get really interesting stuff. So let's do, actually, you know what? Let's do this. This will be interesting. Let's bring that out a little bit, our decay and our sustain, and then we're going to drop our decay like this, and then we'll raise it up for the sustain, and we're going to shorten. Where is it? Nope. Oh, you know what? That's the sustain level, so we're going to shorten that. Let's do something like that. So this is going to be weird. Kind of cool. And then on top of that we have LFO, or low frequency oscillator. So this is going to manipulate the pitch of my notes. So let's go back here, And let's bring these back up all the way. And operator 1, we want to bring our sustain all the way back up. There we go. And then we'll take our level and we'll lower this one. So I have something a little bit nicer. Now if I go over here and I start raising my LFO, I start to get a vibrato effect. I want it a little bit faster. And then I don't want it to set in right away because I want it to be kind of like a vocal thing. So I'm going to raise the delay. So the longer I hold the note, the more it comes in. There we go. So that's kind of cool. And then we can go through here and we can turn it off on the individual operators. We can use the, what is this? LFO. Yep, I don't know what the AMD is for, but this basically applies the LFO to the amplitude of, or the volume of our operator. So if I do that, then I start to get a tremolo effect. So that's really cool too. This is great for if you want to do like a Leslie organ or something along those lines. So then we have our pitch envelope here where we can make weird wavy pitch things go on. That's kind of cool too. And then I have individual settings for all my operators. So on one screen I have ways to adjust certain things. This is where you can get to the mode change. So if I want operator 2 not to be a ratio, I can go to a fixed frequency that I want that waveform to go at. And that's pretty cool. I actually use that for the main reason I wanted to show you guys this thing. But I can go through my operators here. And then we have velocity sensitivity, we've got the feedback, and we've got the key sync. So here's our key sync shape. This is kind of what we want it to do. So if I go lower on a scale and I want my volume to raise, the lower I go, I raise this key sync here. If I want it to go, if I want it to get quieter, the higher I go, which might be nice for something like this, because it's pretty nasty up high. Then I can lower this one. So the sound gets quieter the higher I go, and you can do it as an exponential decrease, which kind of makes it the rate of decay faster the higher you go, or you can do it as a linear decrease, which is going to make it even over the breadth of the keyboard. So if I go here, you can see the sound comes back a lot heavier than if it were linear. So that's useful. What else? Feedback. So this is where things also get really cool. I'm gonna take that off. And then I also want to take the where off. Okay. I'll keep everything else the same, that's fine. So, feedback. This is where FM synthesis really starts to get cool, because if the main drawback of this thing is that there's only 4 operators. That's not really a hindrance if you use it as a 4-operator FM synthesizer is best being used for. Like the DX7, which is the iconic one, had 6 operators. So you could do more things with them. So if I want to modulate my carrier, a carrier operator, but I don't but I want to have other kind of different sounds to join in with it. So in other words, more than one voice playing in sync together. Then I need to choose a different algorithm here that allows me to have more than one carrier. So these are all the different ways that I can affect the carrier operator or carrier modulator relationship. So you can see here I have one carrier that is by itself, and I have another carrier that's being modulated by two other operators. So I can do a voice for this first carrier and then synchronize that with a voice for my second carrier, so that they make a more interesting sound. If I play it like this, it's just going to sound kind of loud. It's kind of like a drawbar organ because I have that second carrier's frequency a little lower. I can also do things like this where I slightly detune, so you can build like your big pad saws and things like that. It's not going to be very apparent right now with these sine waves, but if I go back to my feedback, this is where it gets interesting, because now I don't have to use another operator as a resource to manipulate the sound wave of my carrier. So my second one I can use 3 and 4 to manipulate. My first carrier, I don't have modulators, so I can manipulate it with feedback. If I feed it back into itself one way, it starts to shape it more into a square wave. And then if I feed it back in the other way, it starts to shape it more into a saw wave. Like so. Now, let's go ahead and make both of them saws. Let's do that. And let's go down low, so this is. And now let's go ahead and adjust our detune here. So you get start to get into some really interesting stuff with that. But that's essentially how it all works. We have some effects here that we can use. So there's distortion, which is great. There is a touch wah, which I'm not a big fan of on this thing. I think it's a little too extreme. It's a very limited kind of a wah. You don't have a lot of control over the shape of the wah influence, and I'm not a big fan of that. I would like to open it up a little bit more. You can adjust the resolution, or the resolution and the sensitivity of it, but it's just not, or the resonance, I guess. I'm not sure, but it's just not that it's not that great of an effect. The chorus is pretty good. Also, a lot of these effects are really limited. Like, I would love to have more control over them, but for it being such a simple and easy to use thing, it's fine. So the chorus starts to sound really rich. I like it. The flange, I'm not a... It has its place. It can be good. The phaser. Now we're getting really into like some 80s territory here. And then the delay, which I always love a good delay. That's really cool. And then reverb, of course, and you can really make this an ethereal thing with the reverb. And fortunately, unfortunately, you only use 2 of these effects at a time. All right, now now on to the next thing. In the next video, I want to split this up because I don't think anyone wants to sit through all this just to get to the second video. But I'm going to show you some of the voices that I've made and the one that I'm kind of proud of that I really wanted to share. So see you in a sec.